provides a platform for women of all walks of life to share their upbringings, life lessons learned, experiences, and journeys to come. Uncommon Women speaks on topics that can relate to all women. We share, we listen, we laugh, we cry, and we empower each other to be the best uncommon woman that they can be. Ultimately, we are cultivating a global movement of women supporting women. Women supporting entrepreneurship, relationships, self-love, and so much more. We inspire each other to make an impact on this world for the better. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Uncommon Women. Now finally, grab a seat, get comfortable, and hear from your wonderful hosts, Shanira and Jenny Lee. Good evening, kings and queens. Thank you so much for tuning in to Uncommon Women. I am Shanira.
And I'm Jenny Lee.
And today we have an amazing guest speaker that's going to be with us in just a few moments in regards to sharing her amazing testimony. We have Alyssa McDonald, which is a mother, nursing student, and also a psychology student. She's going to come on today and share her story of being severely burned as a child and how she overcame her traumatic experience. But before we get into all that good stuff, thank you so much, Alyssa, for coming on. And is there anything that you would like to share or a fun fact about yourself that we don't know about?
I don't know about a fun fact, but my birthday is coming up. It is my birthday month, so I will be 31.
Okay.
At the end of this month on the 29th. I'm very excited about that.
Okay. And do you have any plans for your birthday?
To stay above ground. As long as I'm alive, well, that's a good plan.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Do you typically spend your birthday with your family, or do you go out with your friends, or do you just celebrate the whole weekend?
Really, since my daughter's birthday is at the beginning of this month, the whole month is her birthday. Okay. So I'm going to go get a cake, and she's going to say, "Yay, Mom, I'm so glad that you got a cake for our birthday." And, she's going to blow out the candles and everything, and I'm just going to, sit back and enjoy that for however many years that she thinks her birthday is my birthday.
So you guys can go shopping, and you can just typically go shopping for her.
Yeah, the whole month of September is about Elijah. It's all about her, and I'm gonna let her have it for till 16, then we
done. She's like, no, after 16, it's not about you no more.
No more. Okay. Cut off.
16 starts the sweet 16, and then that's when
I'm done. Done. No more.
I feel you. So your birthday's coming up. Happy early birthday to you. We do celebrate the same birthday, so shout out to us. Cindy's birthday is next week, so happy birthday to you as well. So we are
thank you, ladies.
Birthday.
September, yay!
Yes. The month of
Yes. So before we get into your testimony, and I guess being having a traumatic situation happen to you as a child, I guess that is a part of your testimony. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how was your life growing up prior to the severe incident?
Well, I don't really know. I don't really remember because I was burned at 2 years old. Okay. So I was burned very early. So I don't really have many memories before being burned.
Okay.
I do have memories of right afterwards. So I do remember all of the hospitals. The hospital stays are very, very familiar. I remember those.
Okay.
I think I probably remember the traumatic things more than I remember anything else. Like I remember like some of the procedures that I had that were kind of painful and traumatic. I remember things like that very, very, very fondly. But before being burned, I have no recollection of that at all. This is all I know.
Wow. Okay. So can you explain to us the story that your family told you of what happened? Was it just you in the fire, or was it
The whole house? How did everything actually go down?
Well, I was not burned by fire.
Okay.
Okay, so how I was burned, the story I was told was that I was at my maternal grandmother's house, so my mother's mom.
Okay.
And she was preparing some type of cake or dessert or some sort, and she was melting sticks of butter on the stove. And I was in the kitchen with her. Somehow, I was in the kitchen alone, and I pulled the pot from the stove onto myself. That's the story I've been told.
Wow.
All my life. My uncle, who was a teenager at the time, is the one who found me in the kitchen, and he grabbed me, and not know he's only maybe 17 or 18. He's a teenager, so most people don't know what to do when you encounter a burn.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even a small burn, nobody knows what to do really. So him being a child, he the first thing he can do is wipe it off. That's the first thing that he could think. So he tried to wipe it off with the water from the faucet, and that's when he noticed that my skin was literally melting from my body.
Wow.
And he actually has small burns on his hands from the butter and my skin dripping onto him as he was holding me. And so I don't know, but I know that they called the ambulance. The ambulance got me, and I was in a coma for a while. And when my family finally got to the hospital, they were told, we're so sorry, you guys should go home, start making the final arrangements for her, because there's no way that she's going to make it out of this. There's no way that a child so small and being burned this severe would make it out of the situation. So that's what they told my mother and her family that, and 31 years here I am.
Yeah, I know. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, it was very traumatic for my family. My mother is a young mother. She's a teen at this time. She's a teen mom, and so it's very traumatic when the doctors are saying one thing. They're saying like, she's not going to make it. Go home for the funeral. It is, it is what it is. So thankfully, I did not perish, but I did have some struggles. They thought I was blind. Until I believe they said they cut on a bright light, and I was able to see my mother, and I called out for her because I was able to see her. That's when they realized I wasn't blind. I just lost vision out of one eye. So I have a prosthetic eye.
Okay.
I believe they said that my head swelled like 3 times its size. I couldn't hold it up on my own because of the swelling. I had internal burns because I swallowed some of the burn, the butter. So I've had a lot of traumatic experiences regarding the burns. One procedure that I remember the most fondly is when you're burned on the face, it's constricted.
Okay.
So I had to do a therapy where they stretched my mouth. Yes. So I remember finally it was something. Just imagine scissors, but the end is not sharp. Just imagine scissors, but the end's not sharp, and they will put that machine or that into my mouth and stretch it open to help me have therapy so I can eat. Yeah, so I could eat, and all of these
at 2 years old.
Yeah, I've been through my last surgery. I was 17 years old, so I've had surgeries from 2 to 17.
Wow.
So I've had over 100. Over 100.
Oh
surgeries.
wow.
Yeah, I've had so many, mostly skin grafts, and things like that. But I've plastic surgery, things like that, things to help open the nose and, like I said, expand the mouth. Skin graft, skin move from one place to the other place. So I have scars on my face. I have scars on my shoulder. I have a scar on my back. I have a scar on my thigh. I have a scar in the middle of my head, right behind my ear. There's just, there's scars everywhere. It's like, but it's all I know. I'm not ashamed of it or embarrassed by it. Mostly because it's all I know.
Yeah.
It's your whole life,
It's
right?
my whole life.
Yeah.
So I do have people who were burned at 15. So I understand that our walk is different because you
Right.
have 15 years of being this person. When you're burned, just like a phoenix, when you're burned, that's a new person.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I understand that that's a different transition from me, and this is all I know. Like I don't know any other way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I do understand that my struggle as a burn survivor may not be the same struggle
Nelson.
as
Right.
someone else
Yeah.
who's been burned, especially later on in your life. Um, so, but we do have some similarities, but um, I try to be understanding with everyone's perspective and everyone's opinion because everyone's experience on this planet is
Right.
different.
Yeah.
Just because I'm burning and she's burned doesn't mean that we feel the same about anything. But like I said, um, we do have a sense of community where we know that we're not the same as everyone else. So just like there's just like the LGBT community, they have their community. They might not agree or have the same opinion about everything, but they have that in common, and that's their community.
Right.
Just like Black people, we have our community. We might not agree about everything, but that's our community. It's the same with the burn community. We might not agree with everything or have the same walk of life or the same perspective, but we know that us going to Walmart and you going to Walmart is two different Walmart trips.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so we, like I said, we have that in common, and like I said, I try to be respectable to people who are burned later in their life, and they have a harder time navigating this world as a new person. Um, because I don't have that problem, so I don't necessarily can understand where they're coming from to a
Right.
point. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, I try to understand and be respectable to their perspective.
That
Okay.
makes sense. That makes sense. Now, taking a look back, do you remember was there any resentment with your mom and your grandma the day that everything happened, or like what emotions do you know if any was your mom going through during the time of having to take you to the hospital and then
Yeah,
finding out what happened?
like I said, she was a teen, so
Okay.
and I'm not her only child,
Okay.
so um, I know that she had a hard time uh, having to drop everything and
Mm,
and spend a week or a month or 2 months
right.
in the hospital with me, and she has another child at
Wow.
home. Or
Yeah.
and I remember, like, I was born in Illinois, Decatur, Illinois, and the hospital I went to was the Shriners Hospital for the Burn in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's a 4-hour trip, 8 hours each way.
Wow.
And I remember my family, my whole family, making that trip back and forth until we decided to finally settle in Cincinnati, Ohio. I remember those trips.
Wow.
So I do know that it was a family affair
Mm,
to get me to Cincinnati and get me the help, the professional and medical help that I needed.
yes.
So my family did move. They had no issues when my mom moved. Her sister moved. Her brother
One.
moved. Everybody
Everybody
moved.
just followed.
Take a village.
Everybody.
Take a village.
Yeah.
Yep. That's amazing. You had a supportive family, and
Yeah.
they were all willing to, you know, just pack up and move just to be close to you and making sure that you got the proper care that you needed for your burns. That's amazing.
Yeah. Like I said, I do give them props for that because we don't know what to. Like I said, she's a young
Yeah.
mom, and nobody knows really what to do when your child goes through such a traumatic
Right.
situation.
Yeah, right. Mhm.
So,
Agree.
you know, they did the best they could, and
Right.
you know, this is the
Mhm.
outcome. So I'm grateful for that.
So even with, living with the burns, how was it growing up, going to school? How were children towards you? Did you get bullied?
Yes. Um, the thing about bullying, this is my take on bullying.
Okay.
I don't think that I was bullied any more than any other.
Everybody was getting right.
Mhm.
Everybody gets
Yeah.
bullied. They
Yep.
will find anything wrong, you know, and zero on
Mm-hmm.
on that. I was an easier target. I
Yeah.
would say I was an easier target, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I was bullied more than anybody else. And I've never been afraid. I've never been the one to back down. I've always had a comeback. I've always had a smart mouth. I've I've never had that issue. You know, we can go
Okay.
back and forth. You want,
You gonna
there's
clap
no,
back, right?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
no problems. Like we can go all
She was
day.
like,
Like
I'm defending myself. You
yeah,
just
yeah,
defending
She said,
yourself.
I'm about that
yeah,
life.
yeah, we can go
Uh-huh.
all day long. Like there's no problems. Like so, I really didn't have a big. I know people are probably wanting me to be like, yeah, and I was bullied and I was crying in the corner and I was cowering, but that's just not the truth.
No. She's like, not
Uh,
me.
not me.
She held her
Um,
own, which is good.
yeah, I held my own. Like I said,
Yeah.
I held my own. But I do attribute that to my family because they let me know like you look different. You're going to encounter these things. People are going to say
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z. You have to be prepared for it. So I've been prepared for it all my life. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting stares since I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm not a stranger to someone staring or someone pointing or that's not I'm not a stranger to that, but I'm also not going to cower in the corner. I'm going to ask you what you're looking at.
Right.
And if you want
Yeah.
to be educated, well, I can educate you. If you want to get cursed out, I can curse you out.
There
Whatever
we
one you
go.
want to
Yeah.
do, it's just
Right.
it could go either way. It all just depends on what you looking at. That's all it depends on. But uh, everybody has those times where they want to fit in. So I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
say that I didn't want to fit in with my peers. Of course I did. When you're a teenager, there's a box. You want to be in that box. If you're outside that box, you're lame. So I'm not saying that I didn't have those things where I wanted to fit in. Of course, I wanted to fit in. But I knew that I was burned and there was nothing that I could do about that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no need for me wanting and wishing for me to change something that's never going to change. So I never dwelled on it because there's nothing I could do about it.
Right. Right. You came
Yeah.
to an agreement with it. You knew that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
who I am.
yeah, it is. It is. This is the car God gave me, and I'm gonna ride it till the wheels fall off. And it is
Yeah.
what it is. I could be dead.
That's true. That's
Hmm.
true.
Very
Burn
true.
burn survivors have a very high mortality rate,
Mm-hmm.
and for
Hmm.
me to be burned at such a young age, and to for me to progress that way, it's a blessing that like I said, I'm above ground. So
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, and I love your confidence. So
thank you.
that goes to my next question. Did you ever battle any low self-esteem? I mean,
Of course,
I've never been burned, but I even
yeah.
acquired low self-esteem. So like,
Yeah.
what was your journey like with that?
Um, like I said, of course, I've dealt as a young woman, any young woman, teenager, man, especially during puberty. We're
Mm-hmm.
all trying to find ourselves.
Yep. Hmm.
So yeah, I struggle with that. Um, but me being burned was never something that held me back because
Mm-hmm.
I can't take them off
Right.
before,
Mhm.
before this class start. And I know it's 30 people in this class. I got to walk in this class. I can't take them off
That's right.
and go
Yep.
in the
Mhm.
class. So it it is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I just make it happen because otherwise I will just be stuck at home, not enjoying life and not
Mm-hmm.
living
Mhm.
life.
True.
And life
Mhm.
has so much to offer, good and bad.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I want to be able to experience both of them. So,
Exactly.
so
Okay.
um, I live until I can't no more.
Yeah. Come on.
So, being that you're severely burned, what are the problems and issues that are faced by yourself and other burn survivors?
um, okay, so medically, the burn survivor community has made a lot of strides with the things that they do medically. I don't believe that the surgical skin grafts are as prominent as they were back in those days. They have things where they use like fish scales to
Okay.
regenerate skin and things
Mm.
like that.
Okay.
Things that were not happening in 91 and
Mm-hmm.
93, back
Okay.
when I
Right.
was burned. So, uh, and I haven't been um, in a hospital as a burn survivor in that capacity
Right.
since I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I really don't know exactly what has progressed that much on the medical side, but for society, uh, the same. I would say the same thing. There's a standard in society, and if you don't fit that standard, then you
Mm-hmm.
have felt the way I felt. Period.
Mm.
That's
You
true.
you could have whether you be black, too black,
Mm-hmm.
whether you be big, whether you be gay or less. If you don't fit in that box, you felt the way I felt. Whether you got a 5 head, 4 eyes,
Yeah, I
if
know.
you don't fit in
I know
that,
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
Too skinny. Even people
yeah,
getting too
too
skinny.
skinny,
Uh-huh.
big,
Yep.
pigeon
Mm-hmm.
toe. If you don't fit that standard,
Mm-hmm.
you heard all the jokes. You felt
Yep.
the sting.
Yep.
Um, so me being a burn survivor, it's I'm not. Besides medically, besides that I'm a medical marvel, and I
Come
should
on.
be living outside of that.
Got it.
Outside of that, if you don't fit in that standard, we felt the same.
Right.
We've had to navigate society the same because if you don't fit the standard, society is harsh, and so I navigate the same way everybody else navigated. You gon' you either you like it or you don't.
That's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, uh, like I said, even but even if like I'm gonna use glasses, even if you did get made fun of for your glasses, you don't have to wear glasses if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that's something that you could change. Me being burned, there is literally absolutely nothing you can do. I'm gonna say that
That's
over.
true.
There is literally nothing. Nothing. There's no surgery. There's no pill. There is nothing. Once you're burned, you're burned. That's it. So either you're gonna sink or swim.
That's true.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So I want to swim. So I swim, and I don't let anybody else's insecurities project on me
Mm.
because everybody has insecurities.
That's true.
You know,
Mm.
you know, I I know some of the most beautiful women who were cowered off my confidence in the room
Mm-hmm.
because just they have an insecurity, and so I like I said, I navigate this world knowing that I'm human, you're human, and we're all going to experience this world differently. And
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
I'm just long as I'm respectful and and I take care of my child, I take care of my responsibilities. That's that's really all I strive to do. I don't strive to be any better than anybody, or more than. I don't like to put on more than what I am. I'm just trying to pay the bills and raise my child just like any other person in the world. I just do it under a spotlight. But like I said, I try not to let it handicap me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because
you can't be stuck in it.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
You can't change it, right?
Yeah, like I was burned, but it's not who I am.
Right.
Yes.
It's something that happened to me. It is not me.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
Just gotta keep it moving. So
that's right.
That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Uh-huh.
so now that you swimming, because you said swimming.
Yes.
You swimming,
Yeah.
How is those fish in the sea?
Child.
Since we swimming and how is it been? Did you have any trials and tribulations with that, or having to explain all the time?
Ooh.
Or, because it's rough out here.
It's rough out here.
It is rough. Listen, rough.
It is rough. It is rough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can say that I probably get more creeps than most women. Maybe people that like have odd fetishes I might get.
Wow.
Fetishes?
Yeah. People are weird. Okay? People are very, very weird. But yes, dating is hard. But I think dating is hard because dating sucks. There's pee in the dating pool. Pee in there.
I gotta agree.
There is pee in there. Like it's not good for nobody. It's not good for nobody. But I do realize, okay, so just say there is 50% of good men in the pool, right? I do realize that only like 15% are going to find me attractive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then out of that 15%, only like 3.5 of them is going to be worth nothing, So,
but now you break it down like that.
But that's the same for everybody.
It's true. I gotta agree with you.
It's the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
My issue with, as long as the man is secure within himself, I won't have an issue.
That's right.
I cannot date me with an insecure man. Any woman with an insecure man. An insecure man is dangerous. Not even joking, laughing. An insecure man is dangerous.
Yes,
period.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. So you have to be secure within yourself, period, to date me, because people are going to question. People are going to ask you questions. People are going to inquire. What do you see? Why? What do you see? Why? You're going to get questions. Like I've had exes who, candidly told me, like, I get people ask me all the time, like, you sure, like, you're not just playing with her, or, you're not, like, so people, you are going to get questions. You are going to get grilled. People are going to look at you crazy sometimes, You just have to be secure within yourself, because I am. And I'm not going to cower, and I like to be showed off, like, because, my
That's
perspective, right. I'm super cute, and I want to be outside, and I want to be,
you want to be outside.
I want to be outside, and I've encountered men who love me indoors, and they just love me indoors. When we get outside,
totally different story.
They're totally different story. They're embarrassed, or they're scared, or whatever. I've encountered that, but I usually have a good gauge with men who are secure enough within themselves where I'm not going to be uncomfortable being myself, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I only deal with men who are secure enough with themselves on that level. Like I did. I mean, I entertained those guys when I was young. We've all entertained. Let's not go there. So, cause we've all
I
been,
agree. Let's leave it at
we've
that.
all,
Yeah.
we've all been there. Nothing changed since I'm a burn survivor. Because as long as you're attracted to straight men, you got some problems, and you gonna have some problems, and that's just the truth. So no matter what you look like, you could shoot. Y'all see Beyonce? She's beautiful and a billionaire, and her sister beat her man up in the elevator. So if Beyonce got them type of problems, then you know. So we all got problems in the dating pool, in the dating area. As long as you are attracted to straight men, you got some problems. So I have some problems because I'm attracted to straight men. So I got straight man problems. So whatever the straight, y'all know what straight man problems is. Them
Yes.
problems,
Yes, we do.
I got them same problems. They don't change. They wear the same hat every house they go. Same hat on. They don't change the hat because I'm a burn survivor. No, the hat's still on, and they still their same self. Yes.
Oh my
So.
goodness, that was funny.
Well, I'm cracking up over here. I'm low key cracking up. We're gonna have to get you a comedy show. You were doing the wrong podcast.
People tell me that a lot, and I always always entertain the idea, but I wouldn't know what to do once I got up there because I just be telling people the truth about my life. Like, I be dead serious. Everybody else be laughing, but I'm dead serious about what I'm telling y'all right now, and I don't know how to translate that into stand-up comedy.
We'll start with the hat. Just all you gotta do is take
the hat part. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that same hat. Yes, we all know what that hat looks like. It's a Chicago fit. Y'all know what it looks like.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, I do.
Mind my business.
Yes, yeah. We all mind our business when we get caught up. A Chicago fit, that's my man. No, he's just the same hat. It's okay, sis. We've all been there.
Right. That part.
Oh man, that was funny. Thank you so much for that. But it's true, everything you was just basically saying. But I really want to piggyback on the questions. You know, how people are busy asking your partner questions about you. And for me, I think that's just like people need to mind their business.
Yeah.
You know, obviously he's with you because he cares about you, he loves you.
Right.
It doesn't matter, you know, people always think like in the dating pool, they expect people to have a pretty face or a pretty body, and it's not always the case. It's always about what you have to offer as your value. He isn't seeing the outside, he's seeing the inner you, you know, and that's what, like,
pretty outside too.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
I mean, you are pretty, but I meant to say, you know, like, you know what I mean.
I
Like,
know
people.
what you mean. Yeah, we know what you're talking about.
I ain't for everybody, is what she trying to say.
No,
yeah, exactly.
I am not everybody's cup of coffee. I'm somebody's whiskey straight. That's
right.
I understand.
Oh, girl, yes.
And I understand that. And you know, you definitely gotta be, like I said, you gotta be strong and very strong within themselves. So I've dated older men mostly because you know, the younger guys, I'm getting old now, so I probably can't even say older men no more. But my past dating history, I've always went for the older guys because the older men are more secure. Men my age, well, men my age back then was still finding themselves like I was finding myself. And, you know, shoot, we grew up in the same era. They were still stuck on the light skin, light eye, big butt, long, straight hair era. I ain't none of that.
I already know about that.
Yeah, and I ain't none of that. I ain't checked not one of them things off that list. So, I do attract more older men, because I guess I'm more mature, and but all men suck no matter the age. I've learned that. I've done the research. I've done the legwork. Young women, you don't have to go out. I've done the research. They're all the same, no matter the age. I've done the legwork. I've got the numbers if y'all want to read them. Don't do it. They all the same, no matter the age. So, I recently just left. I recently just transitioned. I don't like to say breakup because breakup is negative and has a negative connotation to it, and nothing about the transition was negative. So I had a transition from being in a relationship. It would have been 3 years this April, and you know, it was a transition because we were just two completely different people on two completely different tracks, and I am just not gonna force a square peg into a circle. And I'm just so because no one's happy with that, you know. I'm not happy, and you're not gonna be happy, and I'd rather us to be mad at each other temporarily just for this than to ruin a friendship trying to hold on to something years down the line, and then it blows up and be, you know. So you know, I do date. Dating does happen. I don't like doing it. It's not fun. But like I said, I don't think it's fun for anybody right now. But I do know that the percentage of men that find me attractive who are not creeps is small. And I do recognize that. But that doesn't bother me, because whatever's for me is going to be for me. And I'm not going to have to change a thing. You know, I'm not going to have to pretend to be anything else. You know, they're going to love me for who I am, or they're not. Or, you know, I could just be single my whole life. That's fun too. I don't mind that. You know, I got my baby. I did my contribution to the world. You know, I've done that. So, I don't mind being single for the rest of my life. That's cool. I'm cool with that.
I love that perspective, because we're taught to just, oh well, we need someone in our life, and
Yeah, no,
that's not necessarily always true. You know, if you
No.
feel like your life is fulfilled without a child, without a spouse, then you know what? Then if that's what you want to do and makes you happy, then do it. You know.
Yeah. If you feel like you need something, then you're missing something within yourself. If you feel like you need someone else to complete you, it simply means that you don't feel completed. And it took me a minute to learn that. You know, like I said, we bump our heads during this thing called life. So, you know, it took me a minute to learn that, but I did learn the power of being alone and what you can learn about yourself, just spending some time with yourself. Because when you're in a relationship with someone, we're all individuals, but you tend to pick up and emulate that person, whether it be their energy, their spirit, their hobbies, whatever it may be. You lose part of yourself and you gain part of them when you're in a relationship. And if you're not completed and firm and grounded in who you are, that can completely wash you out. And that's why I am a firm believer with learning and being alone and being firm and grounding yourself and knowing who you are. So when that person comes to your life. They're an addition and they're not everything. You know, you adding to my life, but me relying on you, that's two different things. And I don't want that in a partner, and I don't want a partner to want that in me either. You know, I want someone who's gonna move and shake like I'm gonna move and shake. I don't, I don't want anyone waiting for me at the end of the day.
Right.
And I don't want you to want the same thing either. So, like I said, I do know the power of it is just being alone and grounding and knowing yourself, because you can lose yourself when you partner with somebody else. So, so we're gonna press the reset button on that, because I did that for 3 years. So we resetting that. But
I agree. Being whole is so important, because you don't want to be codependent on somebody else.
Yep.
Because once that person can no longer fulfill that void that you're having, you're searching and looking for somebody else.
Yep.
And that's because they're empty within themselves.
Yep.
And I think that's why, the dating pool is so bad, because they're always looking for the next best thing instead of just realizing who they are. And
they are the best thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some good stuff. What are some things that you're most proud of about yourself? And just looking back, I know you have a daughter that took over the whole month of September. So, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, because I'm working on September too, and I'm but what are some things that you're proud of about yourself?
I am most proud of my resilience. I love that about me. I have overcome so much, and I'm so proud that I don't let it stop me. And my daughter, that's my baby. I'm excited to the wisdom that I've gained over the years, being a burn survivor, because I feel like I have just like a certain something that I can pass on to my daughter that most people, a perspective that most people don't have. And I'm excited to raise her and to see what she can accomplish in this world. Because I feel like, I didn't come from money. I was burned, and but I've been on. I've been interviewed by Ebony Magazine. I've been on TVs multiple times. I've been flown to speak at conventions. I do podcasts with lovely women like you. And if I wasn't burned, I probably would have never been in those doors. So the fact that I took lemons and made them some bomb lemonade, girl.
Bomb lemonade, nice and sweet.
The fact that I do that, I'm most proud of.
That's amazing. That's amazing. If there is one thing that you can share to our listeners to help them better understand, burn survivors, what would it be?
It would be that we're literally just like everybody else, literally. I would say if you're dealing with a burn survivor, if you're like a friend or a family member who's burned or maybe recently been burned, I would tell them to give them grace, because, like I said, your perspective and how you navigate the world and how they navigate the world is totally different. You will never understand what it's like to be a burn survivor. Never. You can never understand where they're coming from. But that doesn't mean that you can't sympathize or have the empathy to be there for them and listen, or be a shoulder to cry on, somewhere where they can vent, somewhere where they're safe from society. Like, they shouldn't have to worry about society or the standard when they're in your space or when they're around you. I have my friends I've had to calm them down over the years, but my friends like to fight. So I'm so glad we're grown now. We've outgrown that.
That's where you get that about that life from. I'm just saying.
My friends like to fight, and I had to, explain to them like, you can't fight everybody. Some people just don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
It's something different. Everybody stares at something different. I'm a burn survivor, and if I see something out of the ordinary, like I go to New York, there's some crazy stuff on the subway that I stare at, like some people stuff that I've never seen that I stare at, because it's human nature to question or be weary of things that are different and that we don't.
Yes. True indeed, yes.
So it's human nature. But how you handle it, how you navigate it, and how you treat those people is really what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah,
the fact that you first met me and you stared for a minute, that's not going to determine whether I'm cool with you or not.
Yeah.
How you did you speak? When we had a conversation, did you look me dead? Did you look me right in the eye? That those things are going to determine, whether we have a relationship or not. Because, like I said, humans, if it looks different, they're going to stare. They're going to have something to say about it. It's human nature, and you have to understand human nature. And I would drive myself crazy being upset and trying to fight everybody who stares or who looks at me like they've never seen a burn survivor before, because they probably never have, So, like I said, I respect that they're having a human experience at the same time that I'm having one. And as long as they respect my boundaries and then then I won't have no issues with them. You know what I'm saying? So as long as you realize that you're still dealing with a human being at the end of the day, that person still has feelings, they still have an opinion about something, and their perspective might not be yours, but respect is the common ground. That's all anybody needs. Anybody is respect. That's all. Like, you don't have to have my same opinion. You don't have to feel the same way I feel about anything. It's just respect to you. That's it. So as long as you treating your burn survivor friend, or if you run into a burn survivor at the store, at the end of the day, that's a human being, and all they need is respect. They're just, if you see me at Walmart, I'm just grocery shopping. I'm just trying to get my eggs, my bread, my tea, and get out of here. Like, and just like you are, I'm not doing anything different than what you're doing. It might look a little different, but the mechanics are still the same.
I like that. It's true. Everyone's different. Even with those that have disabilities, it happens. It happens because you're just different and you're unique. And, instead of just staring, ask, like you said, you want to get educated, you want to understand, you want to know my story, I'm willing to speak to you.
Yes, it's like, do you want to educate, or do you want me to berate you? Whatever. But
you're gonna break it down, not break anybody.
Most people choose to be educated, But to be honest, kids, I love kids, because kids have no problems asking. They have no issues. They will ask in a hot second, what happened to you? What is wrong? Like, what happened? I've noticed that the parents have been stared at me, but their child is the one who had the nerve to ask. Like, I've encountered that so many times, and and then I take that chance to educate the kid on fire safety. You don't mess with the stove. You don't go in the kitchen without an adult. And I tell them that I was burned and I look different, but I'm still the same. I'm a human, just like they are. And kids are very understanding. People don't give kids enough credit when it comes to understanding the world that they live in. So kids are very smart, and they naturally don't have any judgment. They just don't know, you know.
Yeah.
So long as they're properly educated, then you know they navigate the world perfectly fine. Like my daughter, she she's she even though she has me as a mother and I'm a burn survivor. The first time she ever seen somebody in a wheelchair, she stared and she had questions because she's never seen that before. You know,
Yeah.
because it's a different perspective. You know,
Right.
we both might be in the same boat technically under, but it still looks different. And she didn't know what that was, and I had to educate her on, being disabled in that way and needing help, getting around and transportation because, like I said, it's all different. We all have a different experience, um, and we all just need to be mindful and respectful on everybody's experience. We're all human and we're all having an experience, and um, some people are just not strong enough to tell their story or wear their experience on their sleeve. Um, but that doesn't mean that they don't deserve the respect. We should just, handle. Everybody will care because you never know what
Yeah.
anybody's going through or thinking at that moment. So I try to be mindful. Um, because I'm not perfect. No one is. So
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And, you know, not many understand, but it's true what you say about kids. Kids are the most understanding and most caring and curious little creatures. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what? You can sit there and tell them a story and they won't even judge you for it at all. You
Right.
know? And I love that, you
they're
know.
gonna tell you the truth too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh, that too. That
Right. They will. They ain't got no
yes,
filters, but it also might be a lesson to the things that you tell them
too.
hmm
too.
yes,
They might
Yes.
take heed,
Hmm.
like, ooh, okay.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
I love
amazing.
kids. Kids are hilarious.
Oh, Shanera, do we have any questions from the audience by any chance?
Let's see. No questions. Shout out to Kim. Thanks for tuning in. Hi,
Hey,
Kim.
Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for coming on and speaking on your powerful testimony. You know, I love your spirit, your just how you are, you know, and thank you again. We have one question we ask our guest speaker. Uh, what makes you uncommon?
What makes me uncommon? Um, the fact that I don't care what anybody thinks. And
Mm,
I know that a lot of people say that and they don't mean it, but I say it and I live it. I live it every day.
mm,
You know, me um, getting up, like I said, just a simple trip to the grocery store, uh, and me navigating this world with my head held high is not caring what anybody thinks because I've been told multiple times if I was in your shoes, I don't think that I could do this. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what I would do.
wow.
If I was in your shoes, I would never go outside. But you know,
Wow.
but I do, and with a smile on my face, and I make it look good too. And
Mm.
I believe that is what makes me uncommon.
I love that.
And she's about that life and will clap back.
and
Just saying.
oh, oh
Uh-huh,
wow.
yeah, she will. Thank you again, Alyssa, and thank you to all our listeners that were tuning in this evening. Make sure you check out our apparel at www.uncommonwomen.net, as well as make sure you go check out our YouTube channel at Uncommon Women Podcast, like and subscribe. And make sure you check me out next Tuesday, September 13th at 7 p.m. I have an amazing guest speaker. She's going to come on and talk about sickle cell awareness. Um, Instagram Live at 7 o'clock p.m. again, Eastern Time. I didn't forget that. And Instagram, Uncommon Three Women. Make sure you come check me out. As well as if you or anyone that wants to come on our platform to speak on any of the story, any awarenesses, make sure you can also reach out to us at email uncommon3women@gmail.com. And once again, never forget this. Stay uncommon. Bye.